Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for the RWBY Volume 7 finale, The Enemy of Trust. I am unfortunately sick this week. This is like the first video I've actually done where I'm speaking, so you'll probably see some coughing fits. I can already feel them coming on. My voice will sound a little bit weird and raspy, and I'll probably have some coughing fits. And I may or may not have to edit this video. This is like my third time trying to do this because I've been coughing so much. But I like this episode. I definitely like this finale a lot more than the last volume finale, which is really interesting because this one had, it had the Neo fight scene and, of course, the Cinder fight scene. So we got some cool action in it, but I felt the last one was supposed to be like this bombastic thing, like, holy crap, this giant, it was Godzilla. Godzilla was coming in to destroy the little Tokyo, and, RWBY does her silver eyes and stuff, and then it was just like, yeah, but you also just had like this insanely epic moment where you killed Adam, which I'm still a little pissed about. But that was like an insane moment for the show as a whole, and then that finale just didn't do anything compared to like, holy crap, that's a big moment. And so this finale I thought did a much better job, and I felt the episodes leading up to it were a lot better. Like, crazy stuff happened we lost a character in the last episode, and I was so glad they didn't kill Winter. Honestly, when they got to the end, I was like, okay, it got to a point where, once Penny got in the room, I was like, okay, obviously she's going to be the maiden. And I mentioned that before, like, that was a possibility, but I was really scared that they would kill someone else to do it. And then I'm like, all right, obviously now I know. I get it. She's going to be the maiden. And then when Winter got into that fight at the very end with Cinder, I was like, please don't kill her. Because we know Penny's about to be the maiden. I was so freaked out. Like, they were going to do that thing and just, like, kill her anyway. And I'm like, we know what's going to happen. So I was very glad that didn't happen. She got beat up, but she didn't die because I was legitimately worried. But to go back to the beginning, I just wanted to mention that right off the top. I was legitimately worried. I was like, please don't kill Winter. But to go from the beginning to the end, the fight with Neo, that was awesome. She did win, which I mentioned in my last review. I was like, I kind of hope she wins just because I think she's such a cool character. And she does. And it was pretty cool. They do something that I feel like I have to bring this up now. Like, they have these epic fights. And I questioned it in the last episode with Blake. I questioned it with RWBY. And now I have to question it with Neo because they do stuff that's super cool. And then it's like, all right, well, now you have to tell me how that works. Because with Neo's power, there were two things that we always knew. She could basically make images on herself, like she could disguise herself. She can even disguise ships, which we saw in the last volume. And then there's like the shattered images thing, where it's like you see a picture of something that's there. Like whatever, who knows what the exact range is, but it can be her with someone, which is what we first saw when it was her and Roman. And it's like you can punch this image that she basically leaves there and it shatters. Like it's like a porcelain doll and she just takes off. We've never seen her, once again, this goes specifically to the Blake thing from the last episode, we've never seen her actually being grabbed and doing that move. Because I was like, okay, this should be interesting. Oscar, he dives down, he grabs her legs, so she's trapped. And then Ren comes down, and then he hits her, and she just shatters, and she's gone. And I was like, huh. That's something we've technically seen, but that's a totally different version of it because, once again, we'd never seen it where someone was literally holding on to her and then she just, poof, she's gone. And that brings up a million questions for me because I'm like, all right, well, when she leaves an image and then she disappears and it's like, oh crap, she's on the plane now or whatever. That's one thing. She left like a picture behind and you broke through the picture and then you see what happened. She was literally being held onto, and that would mean she would have to have teleported out of that situation to have vanished from where she was. Like she literally was being held onto and then she just swapped out. It's almost like she has Blake's power. Now that they've done this very specific thing, it's almost like she has Blake's power, except she can actually leave her afterimage behind permanently. And she's also invisible, unless she made like the whole, like where she was standing all the way, the rest of the hallway was just a picture at that point and she had already run down the hall. I don't know. But that had to be brought up because I'm like, well, we've never seen that, and so it brings up more questions, because they do epic stuff, because it was a great way to end it, and I was like, that was super cool, but then it was also like, well, what the F? How could she have possibly gotten out of that? It was crazy. It was weird to me. So throw that into your minds, because I thought that was weird, even though it looked cool. It was just like, well, now it brings up that question again, just like with Blake, being held on to, like, if she doesn't have a space to jump through, can she actually leave her image behind? And the same thing with RWBY. I mean, she literally, like, defies all physics, so I don't even bother questioning RWBY. Like, she splits her whole body into, like, multiple things and then reforms, so I don't even bother with that one. But when it's seemingly simple, I guess, it makes me wonder. So I was like, huh, how does that work? So I thought it was cool, but brought up that question again, like, how do her powers work specifically? Because clearly they don't bother writing this stuff down. It's just like, cool moment, and they utilize a power, but they don't realize that it brings up certain questions when it's in such a specific context. So maybe we'll get an explanation. I pretty much know for a fact that we won't, because we just never do. It just figure it out, and that's how it is. And I'm fine with that. I kind of just live with that, and it's just like, it just looks cool, and you just let it slide. But I love the fight scene. She did something very interesting, or she caused a moment that was really interesting with Ren, where of course she's disguised as Nora. And I love the scene with her and Oscar. Like, I just thought that was a cool moment because Oscar was just going through some real crap. Like, he went through some tough stuff in these last 2 episodes. He was just beat up by her in the first fight that we never got to see. He's tired. Like, he's running behind the team and trying to catch up with them. And he ends up losing them because they're just shooting down the hallway. And he's like, I'm just tired. I'm just trying to make it work. And so that scene was pretty cool where she almost, like, stabs him and stuff and he has to dodge. So I like that scene. But the scene with Ren, I thought was really cool. And it gave me hope. Even though it's dangerous having hope with this show sometimes because there's so many characters. It's kind of dangerous being like, oh man, that could lead to something cool. We might get some character development. And it rarely does because there's just so many people. They're probably going to introduce new people in the next volume, or they're at least bringing in more people because Mercury and Emerald have to be, in the next volume because I assume they're going to be with Cinder, or they'll, they could just be off in another city as well, I guess. But I assume they're going to be there. If not them, maybe Hazel will show up. Somebody's going to be with Salem. Maybe we'll even get introduced finally to the last couple of people that were missing, from like the evil table, I guess. So we'll see how it plays out. But the scene that I really enjoyed with Ren was him freaking out. Like, he saw Nora and it made him pause. And of all the characters, you would think he's not the one that's going to do that. And for some people, it may have bothered them. For me, I was like, okay, that's why it gives me hope. Because when a character doesn't do what you think, like, that this character is established as the guy who is always focused, he can do this thing, he makes it happen. And he got distracted. It's the one person where it even makes sense. Because if it was Jean and he got distracted and freaked out, I'd be like, I don't even believe that. But of course it's Nora. So it's like, at least in that specific context, it's like, that's literally the only character where it makes sense. How Neo would really know that, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. Well, I guess technically she's been spying on them. So I guess it does kind of make sense that she would know that they kind of have that connection. But he freaks out and he's crying as they run down the hallway. And then he mentions, like, we weren't ready for this. We were not actually ready to be huntsmen and huntresses. And they're like, don't say that stuff like, we're going to figure this out. And it's like, no, we lost. Like, we definitely lost 4-1. They lost for sure because Neo's just that awesome. And it's like, I don't know. Does he have a point? Does he not have a point? Either way, like I said, once again, this is all hopeful, but it seems like it's something that could lead to development for his character in the future. It could lead to him having either more resolve or kind of realizing he doesn't have to be that character where he's permanently stoic or he always has things figured out, because obviously he doesn't. Like, they kind of tease it in this volume, even though they didn't really pick up much on it. And once again, hope for the next volume. The thing with him sensing stuff, they did it in the first episode where he was like the only person to sense that they were about to get attacked. And then they did it, it was like during the training montage episode. And it was just a simple thing. It was like he knew like Clover was walking into the room. So he like opened his eyes before anybody even stopped fighting. Little stuff like that. Like, they clearly show that he picks up on more than just like, oh, this thing's happening. Like, he can sense stuff from a long way away. So maybe they'll touch on that a little bit more, and it's more in tune with like intent and emotion more than just something's happening. It's like his spidey sense, but it's an interesting way that they're kind of playing with it. So maybe some development will come of that. Team Juniper, I still just call them Juniper, but they need development in general. They at least need cool moments. Like, they had a cool moment, even though they lost. It was still fun to watch them fight Neo. But that was more Neo's moment than their moment because they got beat up and they lost. They need a good moment. They need something epic more than just, we got new costumes and then, a relationship thing that I thought was solved like 3 volumes ago that apparently wasn't. They need more than that. They need like their own epic moment. They need a hero moment. That's what they need. They need to have those epic hero moments. Like, they need their own version of like the Aesop's fight. Or literally anything, because Team RWBY gets like every moment because they're the main characters. But they need literally like anything important. Juniper needs it. Maybe Penny will be with them, and maybe that'll bring them into the forefront. But also Oscar was kind of like a part of their team more than he was with RWBY. And that kind of just put Oscar to the wayside a little bit. So it's always hard. It's always hard to be like, what's going to happen? How much attention are they going to get? like I said, Salem comes in at the end, so who the F knows how many new characters we're gonna get. Penny's dad ends up surviving, so he's gonna be talking some more, and I don't really care about him. I don't care much about Maria, because I mean, literally both of them have done nothing this whole volume. And admittedly, Maria didn't really do that much, even in the last volume. Like, she kind of gave that little thing like, oh, go with hope, and that'll make you, you'll flash your eyes. And that hasn't really worked. Like, it half worked in the last finale, and then it didn't work at all when they had the fight scene. And then Ruby was able to kind of do it when she was mad. So maybe she'll do it easier, when she's like, obviously it's either extreme sadness, extreme fear, or extreme anger. So we'll see what happens. So they have to touch on it. If they don't touch on her eyes in the next volume, that would be the most insane thing in the universe. Because like, you have to do that when Salem is there. Like, obviously we all know that's how they're gonna defeat her. It's like the silver eye thing. It might be a combination of that plus maiden abilities, but at the very least, the silver eye stuff is like the main crux of defeat for Salem. So if somehow they manage to skip over all of that, that'll blow my mind. I don't think that'll happen, but it would be something. But I did enjoy the action scene that we got. I just think we need more from Juniper. Like I said, I hope they get more development. We'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens. Moving on from that, we have the Cinder fight, which was pretty freaking cool. She was basically like the Avatar. She was the Fire Lord. She wasn't the Avatar. She was basically like Fire Lord Roku, just flying around blasting bolts. And when she got super mad, fire would shoot out of her mouth. That was awesome. It was a cool fight scene. I definitely thought it was entertaining. It was cooler in the beginning. I like close quarter stuff compared to like sprawling things. Like after they blow through the wall, which was a fantastic scene because she got pissed and she just like, it was like she would just choke slam them like through two walls, and then they were outside spinning around. I was like, this is actually super, super cool. And then it became kind of like what I call like a Superman fight, where it's just like, oh, they do like one cool thing here and then someone gets sent flying away. And so they were like kind of just shooting blast through the air. So it didn't look as cool because it wasn't like as intense to me. I was like, they're kind of just in literally like a giant open space, just shooting stuff in the air. And Winter got hit and Penny went to save her. And then Cinder had her moment where I was like, holy crap, they might actually give Cinder like the power of two maidens, and they really screwed up twice. Of course, that doesn't end up happening because the Winter Maiden, she just woke up and was like, I don't remember much, but you're a bitch. And she just like blasted her away. And I was like, this is actually pretty sweet. And so no one can get in, of course, except for Penny. And I was like, all right, once that happens, it's like, we know what's going to happen there. So I love that moment. And then Winter goes in and she basically kind of holds Cinder off until Penny ends up getting the power, which was great. I thought I would have loved to have seen Winter get it, just mostly because I would like to see Winter in the series more than Penny, just because Penny was, when she was introduced, she was a main part of the show. Winter has not been. She's always been a backup character that I always felt should get more. Honestly, she's a lot like Team Juniper. They're in like almost every episode and I feel like they don't get anything. I feel like she gets as much attention as they do, unless she's literally not in the volume. But I've always liked her character and I've always wanted to see more of her. So that's why I really wanted her to be the maiden, just because I was like, man, I would love to see this character have the power, especially that dynamic of her being so militaristic. I would love to see how that plays out. Because now that they have Penny, it's like, well, of course, it kind of, when you think of it in a specific sense, it kind of just goes along the normal path. It doesn't change anything because it's like, well, Penny is always Team RWBY. She's always on like the hero side of things. Like, she thinks what they think. That's what it is. If it was Winter, it would have changed the dynamic of the show a little bit, because it's like, oh, well, they don't just have the maiden on their side like they currently do with Penny, which should still be entertaining, but it would be a totally different dynamic if it was Winter. If it was like, man, we aren't the ones, if they weren't the ones in control of that new power, it would be different. But they have Penny on their side, and it's almost just like, well, it's just going to go along the same path, kind of this volume, which has kind of been the whole thing. I'm still on the Ironwood side. They did that on purpose, by the way. Him shooting Oscar was literally like, I feel like they were probably listening to people throughout this whole volume, and they're like, man, how do we get everyone to instantly turn on Ironwood? Let's just have him shoot Oscar for like no reason at the end and basically try to kill the kid. I feel like they did that on purpose, because everything he's done up until that very specific point, I was like, I still just agree with him 100%. Like, I was still on his side. Winter at the end of the episode, where she was like, if you won't, agree to his rules, then you guys should run. I was still like, yeah, I'm still kind of on that side. Like, I still think that they had the right call. And who knows what would have happened, if they did use the staff to take the city up with the way the volume ended with Salem coming in. nothing matters. Like, I'm sure she could find a way to she would just send Grim even higher. But outside of that very specific thing, the normal situation was just like, there's Grim on the ground. If we just go a little bit higher, we're pretty cool. We'll save everyone that we can, and just the whole battle, the back and forth of this episode. But I feel like they really did that intentionally. To be like, how can you side with this guy? He shot a kid. I feel like they did that on purpose. So I'm like, it was weird that he did it. Made no sense, and I feel like they literally threw that in just to be like, you can't side with, with Ironwood anymore because he shot Oscar, and he basically did kill him. Like, he was just like, no, we're not friends. Bam, and he did it. I've had this on my lap just for that whole moment. So it was an interesting little scene. I liked that moment, and it was like, okay, it forced Ozpin to kind of come in and help out Oscar, and of course it gave us kind of a cool narration of like, fear, and they go to all the different characters, and it's like Cinder has a fear of constantly losing and stuff like that, and that comes after she got blasted again with the Silver Eyes, which I love that scene specifically because of Cinder. I didn't care that RWBY blasted her. It was specifically Cinder was losing. She's going through this episode. It's like, she's doing her villain monologue, you guys keep all the food for whatever she said. It just makes us hungrier. I refuse to starve. And I was like, okay, she's got her villain monologue going. She's doing her, her Fire Lord thing. She's jumping around. She's got, fire blasting out of her feet all day. And it was cool. As soon as she lost, she was just mad. She was like, damn, I lost, but I'm still going to fight. As soon as RWBY showed up, she was mad for like half a second, because they show the fire, and then she's like, ooh, and she like freaked out for a second because she looked right at RWBY's face and was like, I don't want this to happen again. And they show her, she gets blasted, but she jumps out, and I think she lost her arm again, because they showed when Winter like cut her arm off, it grew back, which I thought was fantastic. Like, oddly enough, that was probably one of my favorite things about the whole episode. Winter truly held her own. Like, she was getting some hits in that no one has ever gotten in on Cinder. And I was like, that's pretty badass. And her sword splits into two swords. We've never seen that, unless I'm mistaken. I don't think we've seen that before. That was cool, too. But during that end scene, when they show Cinder, like, in the air again, it looked like she was holding her arm like it got destroyed, like it, just grew back. So I think her arm did get blasted off again. She just wasn't as injured, and she takes off. But I was like, that's interesting. It seemed like that because, it seemed like her arm got blasted off. But I was like, I love that scene. She was freaked. She was mad. And then she was like, oh, I'm still mad. And then it kind of registered like, oh, that's RWBY. No, I'm scared. And then she took off. She had to, because she would have died. But it was funny. I was like, I love that scene just for those couple of seconds where it was like, you can see the change in her face. It was like, crap. She got, Penny got the power of the maiden. I'm still mad. Weiss and RWBY show up. I'm still mad. And then I recognize that it's RWBY. And now I'm pissing my pants. And then I have to take off because I'm going to lose here. And I just thought that was funny. I was like, it really shows what affects her. She was going to keep fighting because it didn't mean anything. It was like, I lost the power, but I'll just kill you now. Like, I'll take you down. Like, she already took down Winter. And it seemed like, considering that she had more control over her power than Penny, she probably could have won that fight. Because Winter literally couldn't have done anything. Like, if they didn't show up and it weren't for RWBY, Penny probably still could have been killed. Like, I think Cinder still could have beat Penny just based on the fact that she had more control over her power. It's the same as the Winter Maiden. Cinder's been using her powers for a while. The Winter Maiden shows up. She kind of lost control with it. Like, if she was in her full mental capacity, I doubt she would have just been like, a tower of ice. But that probably also would have helped because it definitely worked. But, I think it's that same thing. Like, the Winter Maiden obviously had fully realized her potential. Cinder had done it a little bit more, and Penny just got her powers. So I think Cinder still technically could have won with not just her maiden powers. Like, she also has her magic. Well, whatever it is. I mean, it's technically not magic. It's just her using dust in her clothing that she reforms in some way. I forgot exactly how they explained it. It's one of the World of Remnant episodes. But I think she could have won that. But then, of course, RWBY showed up, pissed her pants. She had to take off. And she was super rude to Neo. Like, she's on super thin ice. Like, Neo does the whole thing and everything. She's like, boom, I got it. And she does the bow and everything, like, check me out. And it's just like, cool. And she just walked away. And Neo's like, this bitch just couldn't say thank you. You can't say thank you. What the F? So she's on thin ice. She's on real thin ice. I don't think they're going to kill her. I honestly think Cinder's going to end up being the final villain of the series. I always hoped it was Adam, and then they effing killed him off. So maybe I'm right this time. Maybe they'll just kill her off randomly too. Who knows? But great fight scenes. I'm interested to see how this will play out with Penny being the new Winter Maiden. What that means for the characters, what they're going to do. I thought they were going to take off again, because that was kind of the whole thing. It was like, the kids are going to take off. Crow has been arrested. Robin's been arrested. So they're going to be, with Ironwood. And then it's like, well, man, how is this going to play out? Like, where are they going to go next? What do you do next? And then Oscar is kind of in the city and is like, how do we rescue everybody? And then once Salem comes in, I was like, okay, well, how is this going to work? Nobody's leaving. You aren't going to leave that fight. Like, none of these heroes are going to be like, oh, Salem's here, let's take off. They're going to do, and if they do, I don't know what to think about that. Like, if for some reason they're like, oh, Salem's here, let's bail, that would be the craziest thing ever, because then it means this entire volume was them just being assholes, where they're just mad because they didn't get what they want. That would literally be the whole volume if they left. So, obviously they won't. They're going to stay, they're going to fight. And now it's going to be weird to see how they team up. Everyone hates everybody. Like, you have our main characters, and then there's everybody else. Aesop's, Ironwood. I just don't know what to expect anymore. Because it's like, how do you have these characters that spent basically an entire volume disagreeing with each other, and then the last 2 episodes literally fighting each other? How do they come back together? Like, of course you can say, like, oh man, Salem's the ultimate villain, so everyone's going to rally. But they're not. Like, it's just not going to be that simple. I wish it could be that easy, but it is not going to be like that. Especially once everyone finds out that Oscar was basically left for dead. Like, Ironwood just shot him and then, sent him to his death. They're definitely not going to be with him. But also, Ironwood is still in there. Like, he can just be like, oh crap, Salem's here. Let's take this thing, a million miles higher. Obviously not that high. But it'll just be interesting to see. Like, I don't know what to expect from this final volume. Well, not the final volume. From this next volume, I should say. It's just weird. It's like, with Salem being there, so many possibilities. I assume Mercury and Emerald are going to show up. If that's the case, Emerald is probably going to be like, oh man, Cinder, I'm back with you. Who knows what Cinder's going to do with that? Like, she's in a crazy state now that she lost. So, she's in this weird frenzy sort of thing, but she'll, of course, want more followers. And I just don't know where the characters are going to go. Like, it's really hard to tell. Like, outside of Oscar, it's kind of hard to tell what anyone's going to be doing in the next volume. Because it's like, obviously they're going to fight the villains. But what are they really going to do? They're going to have to practice with the Silver Eyes. Penny's going to have to practice with her powers. Cinder's still in the city. She'll probably end up using the relic. Somehow, she'll probably figure out, how to call Jin. And then it's just like, how does all this play out? How does everything combine now that everyone is in the same location? So I'm looking forward to it, but I don't know what to expect. Like, it's hard to have any theories with the way this one ended. Everyone's so disconnected and nobody likes each other. And it's just like, they can't really stay in the city because they'll be arrested as well. So unless they specifically stay on Mantle, and then it's like, I just don't know. It's like, how hard do you push to arrest people when the supervillain is there? I doubt they'll do that. I don't know. It's hard to tell, because then it would kind of push things in a different sense, where it's like, in this volume, I was totally on Ironwood's side, but if he kept pushing it, kind of like Clover, where I was kind of mad at Clover the whole last episode, it's kind of the same thing, where like, would he keep pushing to arrest them when they're trying to deal with Salem? Like, that would just be dumb. So, I don't know what to expect from this next volume, but I like the finale. It had some cool fight scenes. I really want to see more characters come in that haven't had a lot of attention this volume or the last couple volumes. I would love to see, a lot more Sun. I just like Sun. Sun and Ilya coming back, I think would be cool. There's not much they could do, so that probably won't happen. It wouldn't be much of a purpose unless next volume was the final volume and they just brought everybody in, which I don't think it is. I just don't know what to expect otherwise. But I'm looking forward to it. But we will see. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I enjoyed this finale, like I said. Cool action. Interesting consequences. Everyone's kind of split apart, which we already knew. We saw that happen. Like, the whole point of the Aesop's fight was like, all right, the heroes have decided this. Or our main characters. I don't know if I want to specifically be like, they're the heroes. But our main characters have decided this, and they're against these characters. That was obviously the point. But now they can't leave. Like, Salem showing up, they can't take off. After everything they've been saying, they can't take off. They probably should. Realistically speaking, they should leave and train. But then they'd be hypocrites, like I said. So it's like, let's see what happens. We'll see what happens. But ultimately, an interesting volume. I want to talk to my friend because she just started watching it because I told her the finale was today. So she had just started watching it and she was like, I like this volume so far. So I had to kind of talk to her and see the difference of being like stuck with every week of them just lying and being hypocritical and stuff, and then the finale and how everything's played out. So I would love to get her opinion on that and how everything's kind of gone through, kind of if you speed through it compared to just being stuck with what I consider some idiotic decisions and hypocritical ideals from them for quite a few weeks with this volume. But ultimately, a fun finale. Would love to know what you guys thought about it, of course. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Are you happy that Penny got it? Do you wish Winter got it? Like I said, I would have loved to have seen Winter because it changes the status quo. They wouldn't just be like, oh, this new powerful person is just going along with the heroes. Different dynamic, I feel. So I would have loved that personally. Would love to know your theories and thoughts and everything on, what we may or may not get in the next volume. And I kept forgetting to mention this throughout the entire season. This is related to the show, but not really review-wise. For any of you who play like the Amity Arena game, I have a group on there. It's called Sun's Got Guns, of course, because I like Sun. If you'd like to join, you can. I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who plays that game if you happen to not be in a group already. And anyone who doesn't play that game, it's actually super fun. And they do some interesting stuff where you learn more about characters than you actually do from the freaking show. Like, you can read like little info cards and for some of the characters, you can actually learn some interesting content. So I thought that was cool. And of course, before I end this, I do have to mention that the very end, like, we didn't get an extra credit scene with this one, or an after credit scene. They did in honor of Montillon, and that is because this is the 5th anniversary of his death. It's specifically today, and that's why they did the finale on this day. And that's crazy. There's not too much to really specifically say about that. Like, of course, I've been following him, since the Dead Fantasy stuff. Oddly enough, he's the reason I got into K-pop because of the G video that he did with all of the women from the Dead Fantasy video that he did. That's how I got into K-pop, and it's just the craziest thing. But it's crazy to think, he had this idea. He just had an idea. He had all these, shorts and stuff, which you can still find on YouTube for anyone who ever watched RWBY and just, for whatever reason, you never went back to, like, the old stuff he did. You should check it out. It's really interesting. Like, he did stuff based on, like, Final Fantasy. He would do, like, video game stuff. And it was all entertaining. It was all really cool, and it was all very unique. And, of course, that led into the series. I think it was Volume 1, the Sun fight. Sun versus Roman is literally from, like, an old video that he did years and years ago. I don't know if he actually made it into a video, but, like, you can find some behind-the-scenes stuff on that. But stuff like that. Like, he just had stuff that was that epic way before RWBY ever came out, and then it was just like, I'm just gonna pluck this thing and throw it into my new epic thing. And I just wanted to mention that because, of course, it's the 5th anniversary, and it's crazy. And I remember I was actually at a convention when I found out that he died, and it was the craziest thing, and I was just like, holy crap. Like, it was just weird, and it's just like a weird feeling to have that experience, because it's like a guy has this dream that he wants to, the things that he made, obviously, like, the detail in this series, it's clear. This was like, it was a full-on passion project. It was something that, fortunately, it worked and it made money and stuff. But you can tell it's just, at some point, when you see a specific piece of art, it's just like, this was just done because it was in someone's head and it was in someone's heart. And that's what I think RWBY was. And so I just wanted to kind of mention that because, it's been 5 years. And that is a crazy thing to think of. And it's unfortunate that he hasn't gotten to see where his creation is gone and the things that it's done. And basically, like, the madness surrounding this series and how much people love it and how much people might love to hate it and stuff like that. And so I just wanted to mention that, obviously, as it said, they still miss him and they still love him, and he is still loved and he is still missed, and the art that he has created and contributed to and just the ideas that he's had, it's just interesting to see that flow without him in general. So wanted to say that at the end, of course. And if you guys have any words that you would like to say, please put them in the comment section below, whether it's about the episode, about Monty in general, how you found out about the show, how you found out about him, anything like that, please put it down in the comment section below. And of course, thank you guys for watching.